Hey guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Ruebz. This is Ruebz Random Reactions. I have another random video today, so I'm going to be getting back to my roots, and I am going to be reacting to a history video. So it's going to be about Prohibition, American Prohibition. I don't know if it had Prohibition in other places of the world, but we're going to go with American Prohibition. So obviously it's going to be about running alcohol. This is when the American government outlawed alcohol. So of course, once a government outlaws something, there's always going to be a black market that occurs right after that. So we're going to get up into this, and it's going to be about OverSimplified. You can't go wrong with these guys. You guys are awesome. I've always said that these guys should be in classes. They should be in schools all over the United States, because honestly, it's very educational, and just the visuals are awesome. Like I said, it'll definitely keep a child's attention in a tight hold. So let's get up into this without further ado.
This video was made possible by Honey. Click the link below to save money on your online shopping. And also, limited edition Al Capone pins on sale now.
Go get those Al Capone pins,
before they sell out. Link in the description. America, the land of beauty.
Let me take off these subtitles, because I personally myself can do without them.
Strip malls, top class infrastructure, and wonderful urban sprawl. Ah yes, beautiful America. But what's the most American thing you can think of? This
hamburgers. No.
Liberty? Mount Rushmore? A crazy lady?
Hey, hamburgers are a bomb. I don't care what anybody says in other places of the world. If they say that burgers are disgusting, they probably haven't had burgers, okay? Because that's honestly, it's fucking good. With meat, bread, lettuce, tomato. Like, how could anybody say that's not good? Like, if they're saying that's not good, one, you haven't had one, or two, all you've had was McDonald's. Yes, of course, if all you've gotten was McDonald's for your version of burgers, it's gonna be gross.
Mobility scooter yelling at a pigeon? Well, what if I told you the answer is alcohol? That's right. When the Puritans arrived on America's shores, they brought a ship packed with beer. George Washington provided his men with a daily cup of whiskey. Andrew Jackson's inauguration party left the White House so trashed that everybody had to be ordered outside. Frederick Douglass said whiskey made him feel like a president. Me too, Frederick. Me too. Americans drink with breakfast. Doctors prescribed their patients hard liquor. In the 19th century, Americans drank 3 times as much as their modern-day counterparts.
Jesus. And this is during the time when Prohibition? Yeah, this is during the time when, like, did we still have cocaine and Coca-Cola? Like, it was normal. People were, taking using heroin and using cocaine like it was a thing to do. So it doesn't surprise me that they were using this as like an ailment, or like to cure things.
A lot of whiskey. Hey Jerry, how's that report coming along? Already done, sir. I've also organized your paperwork, watered your flowers, and been a father figure to your children. Wait a minute. What's that smell? Have you been drinking at work? No, sir, I would never. Well, why not? Everyone else is doing it, but I got all my work done. You're fucked!
I mean, I'm not gonna say I can understand why the government did that, because at the end of the day, we should be free to do what we want. If people were literally drunk left and right, and you had alcoholics everywhere, I can probably understand why America was like, let's outlaw this. But yeah, the Middle Eastern countries, they don't drink. Duh, there's many places in the world where they don't drink. But yeah, that's wild.
Americans drink at work. They drink at barn raisins, baptisms, and public hangings. Wow. Heavy drinking was so normal that it was as American as apple pie. Hi everyone, my name's Ron, and I'm an alcoholic. Get over yourself, Ron. We're all alcoholics. But more and more Americans began to wonder whether all of this truly was a normal way to live. Were Americans drinking, perhaps, a little too much? Well, one group in particular thought the answer to that was yes. You know them, you love them. Woman. Oh crap, woman! Wrong! Hang on! We just want to talk. Woman talking in public? That's outrageous. Come on, Fred. You've got 2 kids and a wife at home. Yet here you are spending your entire paycheck on booze. And you, Dr. Spanky, you were on the cusp of discovering time travel.
Why is his eyes all cockeyed? It's like he can read 2 books at the same time.
What did you discover instead? The sweet, sweet joys of whiskey. That's right. Alcohol. It's just...
Honestly, I have never been much of a drinker. I mean, I drank growing up and stuff, but I've never been much of a person to drink, like, or crave to drink, or even crave a beer, honestly. I've just never really been into, drinking. Like, I've always been a smoker, I'm not gonna lie. But when it came to drinking, not my cup of tea, to tell you the truth.
families, our jobs, and our homes. Hang on, men. Don't let them get to you. This saloon is our safe space where our wives and children can't annoy us with reality, where we're free to be real men. And what is it real men do? Take care of their families.
Drink.
Do you take care of your family? No.
Do you take care of your family?
We drink beer, we shoot guns, and we mud wrestle. As America's heavy drinking ruined more and more lives, moral resistance.
Look at his face. They're all hammered.
Women were at the forefront, taking matters into their own hands at a time when women doing just about anything was shocking. They'd had enough of being victim to their husband's heavy drinking, and they were going to do something unprecedented.
You speaking about that, like bars and drinking, but there's parts of Mexico, like I've been to Chihuahua, so there's parts of Mexico where women still aren't allowed to go into bars. Like, she will be seen as like a whore or whatever if she's out in public drinking, like bar crawling, anything like that. It's seen as a big no-no. She's liable probably to get hit, you know, as bad as it sounds, but for sure her reputation is ruined if she is seen in those bars drinking, especially if she's alone. Like, it will be bad. But even then, like over there, like, you wouldn't take your girl to a bar, to a club. Like, you don't do that in that part of town. But I found that very old school, and I was like, wow, these small towns really still retain that old school mentality. So you got to be careful, I guess, depending on where you go, because it could be seen as a big no-no, especially in the Middle Eastern countries. Like, whoo, they better not catch you drinking.
Going to what? I'm going to protest.
Now, I'm sure this was unheard of during that time.
Oh, sweetie, women can't protest. Starting in Ohio, before spreading nationwide, women began a crusade against alcohol. They marched through towns and cities, singing hymns, gathering outside saloons, and praying on their knees. Women praying was so terrifying that in some towns, schools were shut and business stagnated. On one occasion, firemen were called out to hose down the dangerous praying women. On another, the owner of a beer garden...
Next time they did that was in the 60s. To black people.
They hold a cannon outside and threatened to reduce the savage women to dust. Nevertheless, they persisted. They formed the WCTU in 1874, and they organized. They set up homes for inebriate women. They installed water fountains in public parks. They wrote textbooks for school children that contain some interesting claims about drinking alcohol. Here's little Timmy. Uh-oh. Looks like Timmy's gonna have his first drink. He's taking a small sip of whiskey, and Timmy has spontaneously combusted. The end. The woman's efforts weren't in vain. In small towns across America, drugstores agreed to stop fulfilling prescriptions for alcohol. Men committed themselves to get...
Prescription for alcohol? Why? That's how you know. The more we know, huh? The more we know. Like, is it going to be like this in years from now? Like, hey, they're... Like, you know, like, oh, did they... I don't know where I'm going with this. You know what I mean.
Drink. Inspired by the women's moral fervor, some saloon owners closed their doors. The Women's Crusade and other temperance movements were forcing people to reconsider alcohol's role in society, and more people began to side with the growing temperance movement. Many states had even begun enacting their own dry laws that restricted the sale and use of alcohol. One of them was Kansas, where alcohol had been outlawed since 1881. Despite this, many illegal saloons remained open, and authorities had done just about nothing to stop them. One woman, disgusted by what she saw, decided she would take the law into her own hands. And not just any woman, a terrifying, hatchet-wielding, sweet old lady named Carrie Nation. Armed with her trusty hatchet and a bag of what she called smashers, she traveled from town to town visiting saloons. But she wasn't there to get smashed. She was there to smash. The men could do nothing but cower as sweet little Carrie hulked out and tore the place to shreds. She went to Kiowa and smashy smash. Wichita, smashy smash. Topeka, smashy smash. On a couple of occasions, she was arrested, but each time they were like, okay, Carrie, we're gonna let you go so long as you promise to be a good girl and not smash up any more saloons, okay? Screw you, pig! Yeah, I think she's gonna be all
green.
Right. Smash, smash.
Hulk smash.
It shocked the other members of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, but she assured them, and this is a quote, ladies, you do not know how much joy you will have until you smash, smash, Smash. Carrie became a household name, and she hoped her unusual tactics would spread across the country. But unfortunately, many of the women's movements eventually slowed down. Why? Well, because of this kind of thing. Thelma, I ripped my pants again. Ugh, well, you'll have to sew them yourself.
Because they were still mothers at the end of the day and they had to still take care of shit.
I'm going out protesting. What? I don't know how to sew. What if I burn the house down and get eaten?
What if I burn the house down?
Don't be stupid, Mitch. Look, I've gotta go. Don't call me stupid. She's the one who's stupid.
Okay, that's what he meant. I'm like, how now?
Hey, Thelma! Look who's stupid now! See, while the women were out protesting, there was nobody to do the cooking and cleaning and being seen and not heard, and they gradually had to return to their duties at home. But where the women had got the ball rolling, a new movement was about to take that ball all the way to Washington, D.C. I'm talking about the Anti-Saloon League. The Anti-Saloon League was a political pressure group run by a very sweet-looking old man. But don't let that deceive you. This guy was an evil genius. While the women's movements were interested in a whole range of issues, Wayne Wheeler and the Anti-Saloon League only cared about enemy number one, Mr. Alcohol. And as a result, they were extremely effective. They were able to exploit the fears of the American people. And I mean everyone's fears. Here's how they did it. Hello, sir. Welcome to the Liberal Progressive Rally. Why don't you introduce yourself? Well, I'm Patty, and I'm an immigrant from Ireland. And tell me, Patty, do you drink?
They blame it on a race. That's what they did.
Yes, I drink a lot. See, folks, people like Patty come here looking for a better life, only to end up drunk in the gutter. Don't worry, sir. We're gonna help you. Hey, man, you're doing great. I just need you for one more thing. Hey, Christian conservatives. This is Patty. He's a dirty Catholic Irish immigrant who's come to destroy America with his alcohol-fueled debauchery! Workers were told alcohol was a capitalist ploy to keep them subjugated. Factory owners were told alcohol was making their irresponsible workers lazy. The black community was warned alcohol was hindering its progress, while racists were warned alcohol would turn black men into brutes. In one of the most confusing eras of American politics, totally opposing groups found themselves agreeing on at least one thing. Alcohol was bad. The Anti-Saloon League also made great use of propaganda, something prohibitionists have been doing for decades. Take this specimen, for example, that warns what will happen to you if you start drinking. Let's see. First you take a drink, you get a little rowdy, okay. You make some new friends, nice. Then you become homeless. You turn to crime, and...
Kill yourself?
But the most effective tactic Wheeler used to force prohibition on America was pressure politics. In any election he could, Wheeler very successfully rounded up support against any politician who was in favor of alcohol. In Ohio alone, he had 70 state representatives and the popular Republican governor ousted from office and replaced with prohibitionists. Suddenly, every politician in America was afraid of Wayne Wheeler. Even
those liberals, I'm telling you, it's gonna be the death of our country. Malcolm X always said if communism comes, it's gonna be in the shape of a liberal. A white Democrat. I don't know.
Who enjoyed alcohol in private began pretending to be against it in public. Alcohol is delicious. Malicious. Sorry,
Malicious.
I'm really drunk right now. Then it really hit the fan in 1917, when America found itself fighting in the First World War against Germany. Anti-German sentiment exploded. Sauerkraut became Liberty Cabbage. German measles became Liberty Measles. And Dachshunds became the embodiment of evil. See, America? You've always been this way. The biggest brewers in America were German, and Wheeler saw to it that drinking alcohol became akin to pro-German treason. The German brewers desperately tried to fight back, creating their own propaganda, presenting beer as a healthy beverage, one that you could even give to your kids. As you can imagine, it didn't go down well. President Wilson instituted some temporary wartime prohibition measures to save grain for food, and with many in the country now in support of prohibition, all that was left was to make it law. One problem was that taxes on alcohol made up nearly 40% of the U.S. government's annual revenue. And the government wasn't just about to give that up. No problem. The Anti-Saloon League helped lobby for the creation of a new income tax on the American people. And just like that, the government was no longer reliant on alcohol. Prohibition was finally introduced to Congress in 1913, not just as a law, but a constitutional amendment. In 1917, as the House held their final vote on the Prohibition Amendment, Wheeler was watching from the gallery. You spineless cowards. I know half of you drink, yet here you are bowing down to Ned Flanders up there. Look at him, like he's some kind of Caesar. Ugh, don't be so dramatic. I obviously don't think I'm Caesar. Now release the lion. In the
Release
end,
the lion.
Prohibition passed the House easily, 282 votes to 128, and the states ratified the new amendment by 1919.
Sorry, I'm just really trying to pay attention to this. Some of the stuff I did not know. Like the whole woman thing, like they were behind this whole thing. Fuck. I did not know that.
America, a nation obsessed with liberty and freedom, had just voluntarily given up its private right to choose whether or not to drink alcohol. We did it, folks. We fixed everything. America will be perfect forever. But you just dissolved America's 5th largest industry and lost tens of thousands of jobs for us immigrants.
Yeah.
No, you idiot. You don't get it. We helped you, idiot. Ugh, I could really go for a beer. Oh, no. Immediately after Prohibition went in...
Why is it that always Democrats or liberals trying to tell you how to feel or what you're feeling? Like, can you let the oppressed people speak and let them tell you how they're feeling versus you telling them what their feelings are? I don't fucking know.
Fact, alcohol consumption in America decreased as Americans followed the law and tried not drinking. Man, if we're gonna be law-abiding good boys, we need something else to fill the dark, lonely void that delicious beer once did.
Weed?
Well,
What is it?
how about we crack open a nice cold can of water? Hell yeah! Toss it over. Nah, this isn't doing it for me. Let's try knitting. This isn't filling the dark void at all. Wanna play some kites? Ah, screw it. Let's go get some illegal beer. While it seemed like many Americans supported Prohibition, after the law went into effect, it seemed like just as many Americans intended to keep on drinking, and they would go on to find a variety of ways to break the new law. Here's a question for you. Do you like breaking the law?
And this was obviously during the time of like Bonnie and Clyde. These are how a lot of these people came to power. Bugsy Siegel, all these, Al Capone. I believe they all used to run rum and stuff and undercover, cars and try to sneak over liquor and stuff. Where did they bring that stuff from? Or they made it themselves and they like dispersed it throughout the country? Were they getting it from Canada? Down south from Mexico? Were they bringing it up? I don't know. I guess we'll probably see.
Well, shame on you. Or do you like saving money when you shop online? Then you should use Honey. Do you ever shop in store? Of course not. Then you'd have to talk to real life people. Yuck. Thank you. Now where were we? Oh yeah. Punching Patty, passing Prohibition, and procuring pints. Pretty soon after the new law went into effect, the failures of Prohibition were already beginning to rear their ugly heads. For starters, the details of the new Prohibition law, written by none other than Wayne Wheeler himself, turned out to be more draconian than expected. Many Prohibition supporters only wanted to outlaw hard liquor and hoped beer would remain legal, but the Volstead Act outlawed anything over 0.5%. That would make Liberty Cabbage illegal. Secondly, the new law was full of loopholes that Americans very quickly began to exploit. For example, while the sale and manufacture of liquor was illegal, drinking it wasn't. And you could also keep any alcohol you had before the law went into effect. So many private clubs hoarded huge amounts of alcohol that saw them through the entire Prohibition period.
Wow.
Whiskey intended for medicinal purposes was also allowed, and doctors basically became bartenders. It looked as though a full-on epidemic had broken out, as there was a sudden surge in prescriptions for whiskey. Sacramental wines used by churches and synagogues were also permitted. Orders for communion wine suspiciously skyrocketed by millions of gallons. And as rabbis had access to religious wine, suddenly everyone was becoming a rabbi. You had Rabbi Pat O'Leary, Rabbi LL Cool J, Rabbi Fluffy. Don't worry, I'm sure all these definitely legitimate figures couldn't possibly be selling wine in the back alley after mass. Yeah, definitely nothing strange going on here.
Wow.
New products also hit the shelves in stores, such as Vine Glow, a brick of dehydrated grape juice, itself not alcoholic, and therefore perfectly legal. But the packaging did contain a strangely specific warning. After dissolving the brick in a gallon of water, do not place the liquid in a jug in the cupboard for 20 days, because then it would turn into wine. I'll take 1,000. Yes, sir. Now, at this point, I want you to think back for me, if you will,
Smart.
to the year 2005. You're the coolest kid around, and you convince your parents to rent the greatest movie of all time from your
Agent
local
Cody Banks,
blockbuster.
wow.
The movie starts with a strange message, something about not downloading a car. You immediately disregard that and hop on Kazaa to download the greatest song of all time, and in the process, drain your dad's bank account with copious amounts of ransomware. You were breaking the law, you bad boy or girl, but did anyone come to arrest you? No. That's my point. If no one's enforcing a law, while everyone's breaking it, is it really a law? And so it was with Prohibition. See, the conservative-led government...
It'll be like jaywalking. It's illegal, but a cop necessarily won't give you a ticket for it unless like you're doing it stupidly or something, unless the cop really has nothing to do. But people jaywalk all the fucking time in front of police officers. Most of the time, they don't say nothing. So I'm guessing it was like that.
The decade were also the kind of people who believed in small government spending. So they'd passed a law that would be extremely difficult to enforce, but also didn't want to spend any of the money required to enforce it. The newly created Bureau of Prohibition only had 1,500 agents to cover the entire country. That's one agent for every 70,666 Americans.
Good luck.
In a massive country with 12,000 miles of coastline and one gigantic land border with Canada. Good luck, schmuckos. And all these clever little loopholes people were using to score illegal booze were only just the beginning. America was about to devolve into alcohol-fueled criminal chaos. By outlawing it, Prohibition had made alcohol a precious commodity, and millions of Americans would become outlaws as they found a variety of ways to score illegal booze. For example, many Americans began making their own liquor. Illegal stills from making moonshine were found by Prohibition agents from the hills of Kentucky and the caves of Arizona to parking lots in major cities, and even in the homes of Prohibition-supporting politicians. Oh, come on now, fellas. I voted for Prohibition. I'm not gonna have an illegal still. What's this? That's my son, Freddie. Say hi, Freddie.
Not a still. Stupid.
How dare you? Hey, what's this in the bathtub? That's bath water. Why does it taste like alcohol? Here's a better question. Why are you tasting my bathwater, weirdo? Come on, Freddy. Let's get away from these perverts. To discourage moonshine, the government began adding extra toxins to many of the products moonshiners were using, which resulted in many cases of severe illness and death. But alcohol wasn't just being made at home. Along America's vast coastlines, rum runners smuggled alcohol into the country by sea. A floating supermarket known as Rum Row extended along the east coast.
Why don't they just get it down south from Mexico? Like, why are they never... I mean, I'm sure they got it from Mexico. Why would you import it from England when you can just get it down... Maybe they weren't used to the tequila. I don't know.
Beyond America's maritime limit, and bootleggers frequently sailed out in small...
I would have jumped my ass over to Mexico.
These bootleggers could then be found selling their illegal products everywhere, even in the halls of Congress. Wow, Pop. One day, I want to work here. Well, son, if you work hard and never give up, one day even you could be a massive hypocrite. Even President Harding was known to serve his cabinet bootlegged whiskey, and some bootleggers were so successful, they became bazillionaires. Such as Roy Olmsted, an ex-cop who became one of the biggest employers in the Seattle area from smuggling booze. Unfortunately, all of his whiskey came from Canada. Yuck.
Unfortunately.
Being made possible by copious amounts of corruption.
Why are they always ragging on Canada? I swear.
The country, armies of government officials were persuaded to turn a blind eye. Bootleggers became so rich, it was no problem to stuff a couple $1,000s into the front pocket of the police chief, or the mayor, or their disapproving mother. And some cops were getting almost as rich as the bootleggers. All right, men, everyone gather in. I've received word that one of you has been taking bribes from bootleggers. Any ideas who? Kevin, perhaps. Got any thoughts? No, police officers.
You got a pimp head.
That drank a lot, and they weren't about to arrest their own granddads for knocking back some homemade gin. But all this isn't to say there was no enforcement. Plenty of government officials were doing their best to enforce the new laws, and some unlucky individuals received very harsh penalties, such as a Michigan mother who was sentenced to life in prison for small-scale moonshining. Cases like these were widely reported in the media and only served to make Prohibition even more unpopular. But not just that, the media also loved to cover the exploits of the most famous bootleggers, turning them into national icons. One of the biggest bootleggers was a man named George Ruebz. Originally a lawyer, he watched as his bootlegger clients paid off enormous fines like it was nothing, and proclaimed bootlegging's the business for me. But unlike most bootleggers, Ruebz had big brain, and he came up with a pretty clever system. See, there were millions of gallons of liquor produced before Prohibition that were sitting in distillery warehouses, and it could only be sold with government permission.
So you buy the warehouses and it becomes yours?
Drug companies. So Ruebz set up his own drug company and bottled the liquor. Then he set up his own transport company to transport the liquor. And then he would send his own men out with guns to intercept his own transport vehicles. And this would happen. Hey man, this is a stick-up. Oh no, please don't hurt me. I won't hesitate to shoot. Please, I have a wife.
That's hella smart. So he had the whole cycle. Damn.
It's hand over all the whiskey, Fatty. Hey! Fatty isn't in the script, you jerk! After stealing all the whiskey from himself, he could then sell it for big bucks. The perfect crime. Unfortunately, Ruebz was eventually caught by a goody two-shoes Prohibition director in Indiana who wouldn't take Ruebz's bribes, and the government found Ruebz guilty of violating the Volstead Act 3,000 times. For 2 years, as Remus sat in prison, his wife promised to take care of all of his money. And by take care of his money, she meant have an affair with a Prohibition agent, sell off everything Remus owned, and file for divorce. When Remus finally got out and found his big fancy mansion empty with his wife gone, he reportedly broke down in tears. A few months later, during
first of all, he's been in jail for the past 2 years, and he comes back to nothing. Your wife is gone. Like, that's fucking ridiculous, dude. He should have killed the guy to begin with if he wasn't taking his bribes. He would have closed that circuit real quick.
Divorce trial. He spotted his wife in a car in Cincinnati. Remus hopped in a cab and asked the driver to run her off the road. The driver was like, okay. Then Remus got out of the cab and shot his wife dead. He immediately handed himself into the police. And his next trial, this time for murder, became a national sensation.
I wasn't expecting that. That's wild right there. Love is a hell of a thing right there. You know what? Honestly, she probably didn't take any of his money. It probably would have been a whole different situation. But you took his money and his love. Oh, you took everything away from this man.
Remus defended himself, claiming insanity, occasionally carrying out skillful questioning.
Temporary insanity? A love? Like a love thing? Yeah, maybe.
Crying in the corner. But the nation felt bad for him. His wife had screwed him over. Yeah. And so when after just 19 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned and declared him not guilty, the court erupted into celebration. And
that's still not right to kill somebody. You didn't have to do all that. But it's like, fuck. I guess you reap what you sow. You should have just left the man prior or something. I don't know. Like, that's...
This guy
Remus, I feel for
murdering his wife. The American justice system. Mwah. As alcohol poured into the nation, a lot of it was going to a new type of drinking establishment that had been booming in popularity. A secret drinking establishment. So secret that from the outside they often look like ordinary shops or homes. So secret that you usually needed a...
Oh, these are where like those crazy rooms come from, where like you pull a lever and like the fucking bar flips out, like Quagmire like. I think these are during the time, all the secret passageways and things like that. I think you can still find old homes that have like these old cellars and these little old passageways to get down to a secret bunker or whatever, secret cellar. But yeah, that's wild.
Password to get in. So secret that everybody knew about them. Speakeasies. And once you were in, the party went all night long. Scantily clad flappers, snake ladies,
kicking
jazz. It was a roaring time to be alive. Some publications even posted reviews of these illegal clubs, and bribes galore kept the party going.
Wow.
It seemed like half the police officers and federal agents in cities like New York were receiving kickbacks from speakeasy owners. Hey! What the Kevin Costner is going on here?
What the Kevin Costner?
Hannity. Taking bribes? Why am I not surprised? Prohibition director Simmons? For shame. Mom? What would Dad say? Ask him yourself. Dad would say, quit being such a wet blanket and let Daddy give his tips.
Is he dressed as a flapper?
Speakeasy was shut down by authorities. It seemed like 3 more would just pop up elsewhere. Yeah. And some neighborhoods were so full of them that one resident began hanging a sign to try to keep partygoers from constantly knocking on her door. It really seemed like the new laws regarding alcohol, in some places, were simply being ignored. And one Prohibition agent who traveled the country liked to see which city was the most defiant by timing how long it took for him to be offered a beer after he arrived. His winner? New Orleans, where a cab driver offered him a drink after just 35 seconds. Bravo! Many voices in Congress were already speaking out against prohibition.
That's some good service right there. On everything. Like, would you like a beer, sir? Like, Uber people. Nope. No, just like...
failures. To display how ridiculous the whole thing was, one Republican congressman gathered the media to all come and watch him drink a homemade beer. When he asked a passing police officer if he'd like to arrest him, the officer said no. Hey, wait, is all this what you had in mind? I thought we were going to make the country better, but it almost seems like it's worse.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Alcohol consumption is down. Well, that may be true in your small town world, but it says here drinking in some areas is up, as are arrests for public intoxication, drunk driving, and incidents of liver cirrhosis. The general chaos has turned America into a nation of criminals with no respect for the law, and all these attempts at enforcement are just costing the economy valuable money and eating up judicial time and resources. Release the lines.
Release the lines.
Social change and corruption that Wheeler and the Anti-Saloon League had been so eager to prevent, in the cities at least, was surging. See, when something's legal, you can usually regulate and control it. But make that thing illegal, and often anything becomes fair game. Legal drinking age, gone. Mandatory closing hours for clubs and bars, gone. Other unspoken sociocultural rules surrounding alcohol, Gone, gone, gone. In speakeasies, different genders and ethnicities were beginning to mingle in a way they hadn't done before.
Good.
The Roaring Twenties saw a monumental shift in culture. Not least of all because now men and women could flirt in public without being damned for eternity. An outraged Wayne Wheeler
Did this start, you know, the whole civil rights movement? Did this go back way back then? You know, like, I don't know. That's wild.
make sure that anyone breaking the law...
I thought maybe back then, like, black people had their own, you know, Hispanic... I don't know how much Hispanics were there during that, but maybe every race had their own. I didn't know they were just, you know, desegregated or whatever. I didn't know that.
...was punished. He had even stricter legislation put in place in New York.
I guess when government tells you no, like, all the people band together, I guess, at that point. So it's like, your enemy is my enemy type of thing, you know?
This did was clog up the justice system with petty drinking violations, and judges began letting everyone off with light fines, so the judges could get back to dealing with things that actually mattered.
Yeah.
You know, things like murder. And there was plenty of murder, because bootleggers and moonshiners were one thing, but Prohibition had given another kind of criminal an opportunity to make a fortune. Mobsters and gangsters. Hey, Fat Tony, big news. Hey, Fat Joey, what's up? I just got word from Fat Louie here that the government's outlawing alcohol. You know what that means. That means we're gonna be rich! Quick, call Fat Polly and let's go hijack a liquor truck now. All right. Hang on, let me tell my wife first. Hey, Fat Susan! No pizza for Fat Joey tonight, capiche? Stop calling me Fat Susan! Forget about it. Come on! Rival gangs began to battle in America's cities, raiding each other's transports, assassinating rivals, and trying to take control of their city's illicit booze trade. Every city had its top dog. Detroit had the Purple Gang. New England had Charles King Solomon, but no city was as infamous for gang violence and murder as Chicago. The city had multiple gangs.
Still to this day. Chicago.
And at first, they agreed to stay in their own neighborhoods. But the thing about criminals is that they're criminals, and the agreements inevitably broke down. One day, the leader of the Italian Southside gang was walking along the street when this happened. And he was like, you know, I think I'm done with this, and left for New York, leaving his crime empire to his chief enforcer, none other than Al Capone. Having been knifed in the face in his younger years, Capone earned...
Oh, that's why he had that big-ass scar on his face. Interessant. I did not know this.
Scarface. Although interestingly, he hated that nickname and preferred to be called Snorky. Snorky was
worse.
Just like any other gang leader in America.
You're a gangster. You should have been called Scarface. Boy, what's wrong with you? He said, no, I'll take Snorky instead. He's like, I got a ring to it.
But what set him apart from others, the reason he's become synonymous with 1920s gang warfare, is this. Most other gang leaders would try to keep a low profile because they're killing and murdering and stuff. But Capone lived for the fame and kept an extremely high public profile, frequently speaking with the media about his exploits and presenting himself as a gracious host, providing Chicago with good times. No need to thank me, fellas. I just provide the city with a valuable commodity while doing away with the competition. You mean you murder people? Whoa, who said anything about murder? I just, you know, force my rivals underground. When you do the thing with the hands, it seems like you're talking about murder. Whoa, look at you with the brains. No, people retire. From
his arms turned into spaghetti.
Smokey Capone was somewhat of an enigma, brutal in how he dealt with enemies, but in front of the camera, he was all smiles. One day, he'd be ordering hit after hit. The next,
smart, had the media on his side.
He'd be signing autographs in Wrigley Field. One day, he'd be bludgeoning members of his own gang with a baseball bat for conspiring against him. The next, he'd be playing Santa at a nearby parochial school. And no murder could ever be traced back.
He was playing both sides of the fence, so smart.
Just like every other criminal, he stuffed the pockets of city officials with cold, hard cash. And any who did try to oppose him sometimes found themselves being thrown down the steps of City Hall in broad daylight. Problem solved. The public couldn't get enough of Capone. He quickly became a household name as people romanticized
watching Capone with his cigar makes me want to smoke.
gang life he lived. And this became a source of concern for the people at the very top. President Hoover? What is it now, Mile?
I like how they have the little cameo thing right here from the previous videos, I believe. I think the American Revolution. Dope.
I'm busy. Well, it's just that there's a lot of crime, sir. Crime? How long's that been happening? Well, since the dawn of man, sir. What? Would you like me to blame it on the Democrats again? No, Miles, I want you to blame it on squirrels. Yes, the Democrats! Now stop wasting my time! Since having a crime lord controlling public officials and winning the hearts of the people probably wasn't a good thing, Hoover personally ordered that something be done about this Capone fellow. But before he knew it, President Hoover was also dealing with another major problem. You know him. You love him. Woman. The Prohibition era had been going on for nearly a decade, and anyone with a brain could see that it really wasn't going very well.
Yeah.
One person with a brain was Pauline Sabin, an extremely influential and rich woman who served on the Republican National Committee, fundraised for Republican presidents, and had a secret wine room in her giant mansion. She initially supported Prohibition, but was now disgusted at the chaos it had created, and she began a new women's movement, this time not for Prohibition, but against it.
Just like how they did the war on crime, same exact thing. All it did was ruin it for a group of people. The crime bill, 1994, or whenever it came out, ruined a lot of people's life. A lot of Hispanics and black people, were put in prisons for small offenses where the average white man probably wouldn't have got as much time. But yeah, that goes to show you that sometimes you having these rules or outlawing certain things or whatever, at the end of the day, just creates a black market, and then it just creates, money for people trying to do bad. So, yeah, that's wild.
Being the extremely influential woman she was, her new organization gained nearly 1.5 million members within 2 years, 5 times that of the Women's Christian Temperance Union. She hated that the WCTU claimed to speak for all women, and she began calling for the repeal of the 18th Amendment. President Hoover,
Nice.
I helped fund your campaign, and now I want
Just
you
like how Democrats don't speak for all black people or all Hispanic people. And vice versa. The Republicans don't speak for all Republicans, all black, all white people. They don't. There's no way one party can envelop and encompass a whole nation's ideologies and thoughts and all these things. There's no freaking way. Like there's gonna be things where you're not gonna agree with. There's gonna be things you do agree with. So it's like, honestly, at the end of the day, I think a two-party system, it's not working. Definitely not working. It probably worked for those times when you probably didn't have as much different ethnicities. It was just the majority white people. Okay, maybe so, but now with all these mixed races and all these things, I think we need a third party. We need to break up the Democrats and the Republicans. We need a third option to just level out the playing field, and so not one party has too much power. But that's just me. And it needs to be illegal for like the media to do certain shit. Like the media just has free range to do whatever the fuck they want, which what would happen if the Democrats paid off the media or vice versa? If the Democrats or the Republicans paid off the media and now they have control over the media, like that's one thing that needs to be free is the media in a way. Maybe have laws put in place to where they can print what they want. The same thing with like Republican media. I see a lot of Republican media get silenced on YouTube and things like that. You can't even look up conservative, news stations. Like if you go on YouTube and type in conservative news, all you'll find is CNN, MSNBC, and all these, mainstream news outlets. I think we should look into other news outlets, not just the main ones that are out there.
Miles, what is it I say when I'm not going to do anything? You'll look into it, sir. Oh, yeah, that's right. Pauline, I'll look into it. Sabin gave speeches on the steps of Congress and helped start a growing push among the American people against Prohibition. But Hoover, a prohibitionist himself, wasn't budging. Then, on the 14th of February, 1929, something happened that shocked the nation. Men, thought to be working for Al Capone, tricked some Irish mobsters into meeting them at a garage in Chicago.
Oh, is this the St. Valentine's Day Massacre? I think.
They were there to purchase hijacked whiskey. Instead, the mobsters were lined up against the wall by men dressed as police, and they were shot. The Valentine's Day Massacre had people out.
Not my shit. Thank you, History Channel. I want to thank you for everything that you've done for me and all the knowledge that you gave to me and all the times I skipped school just to watch History Channel. I was such a geek growing up. I swore on everything. My brother used to be like, go outside. I used to go out a lot, but then from the ages of like 13, from the ages of like 13 to like up until I was like maybe like 17. From 13 to 17, I was just a straight up geek. I discovered Discovery Channel and Animal Planet and National Geographic, and I just fell in love with history and just turned into a total geek. So that's why I kind of read. And I have like a bunch of random facts and stuff in my head. Unnecessary random facts sometimes, but sometimes they help me like this, which is awesome. Well, this really didn't help me. If I was like on a game show, I think that, yeah, it'd be pretty good.
It was cruel and almost felt like American mobsters had finally crossed a line. People were sick of the violence, and in part, they blamed Prohibition for helping to create it. The pressure on Hoover to do something was steadily increasing. Fine. Miles, I want you to put a report together to see if this whole thing is working. You mean the thing where mobsters are becoming increasingly powerful and massacring each other in the streets and everyone is disregarding the law and half our public officials are corrupt and taking bribes? That thing? Yeah, I want to know if it's working or not, Miles. Stop wasting my time! Hoover continued to drag his feet on Prohibition, but after the Valentine's Day massacre, he was still determined to do one thing. He wanted Al Capone in prison.
Alcatraz, to be exact.
Capone had been so careful, the FBI were having a hard time charging him with anything, but eventually, they got him. Capone, we know you're supplying Chicago with alcohol and you've been involved in countless murders. Whoa, look at you with the crazy talk. I ain't done none of that stuff. But you're rich, right? You're damn right I am. And so where'd all the money come from, Capone? Alright, I'll let you in on a little secret, but you gotta promise not to tell anyone, okay? I don't pay my taxes.
Tax evasion, baby.
Whoa! For all of his murdering, the IRS finally got Capone on tax evasion. At his trial, he didn't seem too concerned though.
They couldn't really pin anything on him, so they went with tax evasion. Hence what they're trying to do to Trump right now. They're just trying to find something. Like, I'm getting so sick and tired of this whole, first the Russian collusion, then the whole this, then this, and that, then this, then that, then this, and that. It's like, okay, Democrats, I get it. You want him in jail, but you can't find a way to fucking do it. And I'm not the biggest Trump supporter. I'm slowly but surely coming to a realization that they're in cahoots with each other. The Democrats, the Republicans. At the end of the day, I don't know. I think it's just a big facade, and they're just doing this whole act in front of us to make it seem like there's a two-party system. But in reality, it's ran by the elites at the end of the day. Whatever, I think it is, but I could be wrong. I could probably be a conspiracy theorist, call me whatever you want to call me, but at the end of the day, I don't think these politicians have the best interests for us. Majority of these politicians go in not having a certain amount of money and they come out rich and loaded. How do you go into politics and come out richer than when you went in? I thought you're supposed to be doing this for the people. You know, you guys get paid a paycheck. I mean, how do you have, you know, a house in Martha's Vineyard, or how do you have a house in fucking, you know, in smack dab in the middle of San Francisco? Like, where are you getting all this fucking money? Because on paper you only get paid a certain amount. Like, where's all this money coming from? I don't know.
Spent most of his time having a laugh with his lawyers. Hey Capone, I gotta know, why are you so confident you're gonna win here? Well, Your Honor, because I'm an honest man with a big heart who's passionate about working for the good of the people. And also because I threatened the entire jury's families. Luckily, at the last minute, the judge replaced the entire jury pool with a new one that Capone's men hadn't yet got to, and Capone was found guilty. He was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison, the harshest penalty ever given to a tax evader. But even with Capone locked away, the violence in Chicago and other cities continued, and in response, the movement against Prohibition continued.
Honestly, it probably spiked. He probably, you know, yeah, I'm not saying that he wasn't doing crimes, but when you have somebody in power in a certain area, it's only them doing the crimes. Now, Al Capone being gone, the head of power is gone now, which means everything's free reign at that point. So at that point, it could almost make things worse, you know, because he was the only somewhat control factor in that whole area. Now he's gone, everyone's at each other's throats.
To grow. And the final nail in Prohibition's coffin came in 1929. After a decade of booming economic growth under 3 Republican presidents, the stock market plummeted, and America was thrown into the grips of the Great Depression. It was an awful time. 1 out of every 5 workers, 15 million people, would lose their jobs. Half the nation's banks failed. Temporary shantytowns were built for the broken homeless in public parks. Suddenly, very few people had time to care about Prohibition. Expensive enforcement of an unenforceable law didn't seem like that big.
Yeah, if you ain't eating, you definitely ain't worried about some alcohol at this point.
Priority when people were having their homes repossessed and losing their life savings. And many began to argue that repealing Prohibition would create vital jobs and tax revenue for the government. Yet President Hoover doubled down. Here's that report you asked for, sir. Gimme. Prohibition is great. Fantastic news! Sir, it says here prohibition is great at undermining the rule of law in America. Miles, it says the word great. That means good. Now stop wasting my time! The public, increasingly shocked at the violence they saw in the streets, the corruption they saw in the government, the general disregard for the law, and now an economic calamity, had enough. For his re-election, Hoover faced a Democratic candidate who promised to finally do something about prohibition. Franklin D. Roosevelt. Crowds cheered as FDR made his campaign speeches promising to modify the Volstead Act, and Pauline Sabin, a lifelong Republican, along with her 1.5 million supporters, endorsed Roosevelt. And on election day, it was a landslide. Before FDR had even taken office, Republicans in Congress began the process of passing the 21st Amendment to repeal prohibition. One of FDR's first acts as president was to pass the
Republicans and Democrats actually can work together. As you can see, it's happened in the past. You guys, take a note.
Permit Act, which made beer legal while the new amendment was being ratified. In 1933, with the passage of the 21st Amendment, prohibition was finally over, and the people celebrated like they'd just won a world war. Bars and taverns were packed.
I'm not gonna lie, like, imagine going out that night during those times. Like, the bars must have been like cracking. Like, I swear there must have been like so much fucking people out. Like, it's wild.
TU were inconsolable. Wayne Wheeler was dead, and the celebration, particularly in America's cities, was intense. Heading into the mid-1930s, the effects of prohibition were clear to see. From now on, culture around drinking had changed, with men and women drinking together, not in saloons, but in bars and taverns. The crime syndicates that had been given so much power through prohibition remained powerful as they moved on to other things. Some states opted to remain dry, with Oklahoma only repealing its prohibition laws in 1959. Wow. To this day, there are still counties in America with some form of prohibition.
Really?
So what did we learn today, kids? What's the big...
I did not know that. That's wild. I guess that can be certain laws like, oh, no drinking, you know, like no drinking past a certain time, or, you know, because like in California, the latest you can buy liquor is 2 o'clock. So anything before 2, people are heading to, is it 2 or is it 12? It's 2. It's 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock is the latest you can get liquor, because I remember us looking for liquor stores at 1 in the morning and trying to get there before 2, before they finally shut everything down. And then I think in Washington, was it Washington? Oregon, because I lived in Oregon for a little bit too. I lived all over the West Coast. But I lived in Oregon for a little bit too, and I believe their cutoff time is 10 o'clock. It could be 11. Don't quote me, but it's for sure not 2 o'clock in the morning like it is here. But yeah, that's wild, you guys. And that was Prohibition by OverSimplified. You guys go check them out. I always said their channel is awesome, and they should be, they should be in schools. Like, no lie, if I was a teacher, bam, I would definitely be playing these for my students. But yeah, you guys go check them out, and they have a bunch of other videos on there. They do great work. You definitely will not be bored. They have a couple, not too much videos, but they have quite a bit of videos that will definitely keep you entertained for a little bit. And you guys, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Anything is greatly appreciated. Any like, comment, whatever you want to do is, like I said, greatly appreciated, and always welcomed over here. So you guys, you guys have a good one, and I hope all is good. Thank you guys very much.